A teraz mamy jeszcze lepszą wiadomość, ponieważ środowisko John Birch Society popełniło taki artykuł w swoim magazynie New American, dokładnie Arthur Thompson, czyli szef tej organizacji, o polskiej historii, a pod koniec tego artykułu jest również o naszej petycji do prezydenta Donalda Trumpa, także ten link do tego artykułu, póki co po angielsku, znajdziecie na Twitterze Pawła Chojeckiego, myślę też, że na Make Poland Great Again, na Facebooku, na Twitterze i prośba do Was, żebyście rozsyłali to dalej, komentowali, żeby rzeczywiście duży był oddźwięk, no i żeby też nasi hejterzy zobaczyli, że tutaj już Amerykanie się zainteresowali petycją.
Tam hejterzy to tam już nawet nie mamy specjalnych tam apeli pod adresem hejterów, ale pod adresem tych, którzy się mienią naszymi przyjaciółmi. Mówię o sprawie polskiej, czyli Gazeta Polska, czyli telewizja Trwam. No, do mediów Karnowskiego już się nie zwracam, tam oni mają w dupie, nie, przecież jakoś w polityce czy coś takiego, bo nie wiem, czy wiecie, że ostatnio lansują towarzysza Brauna i jego teorię maskirowki. Także to Karnowcy to już niech...
Ja wiem, co zrobić, żeby być tam zaproszonym.
O.
Będę głosił teorię, że wszystkich pasażerów samolotu prezydenckiego porwali Marsjanie i tam trzymają.
No to jest
Wtedy
poziom,
się zainteresują.
Zaproszą.
to jest poziom ruskiej agentury i oni już, że tak powiem, na bezczela lansują to, także do nich nie apeluję, ale jeszcze do Gazety Polskiej, do tego środowiska, czy do telewizji Trwam, no mamy jeszcze jakieś oczekiwania i nadzieję, że to środowisko nie będzie patrzeć właśnie tak sekciarsko, że to nie nasza inicjatywa, no to my nie poprzemy, bo to ich.
Towarzysz Wybranowski już właśnie napisał,
no to towarzysz Wybranowski, no to w ogóle nie jest nasz poziom, także do niego o nic nie apelujemy. Ale tutaj właśnie ten przykład amerykański, że Amerykanie piszą, zobaczcie, to jest piękny artykuł, na razie tylko go przejrzałem w wersji angielskiej, ale to już jest, wiem, że drugi artykuł Arta Thompsona na temat Polski, przynajmniej drugi, który znam, może jeszcze więcej, także jestem pewien, że naprawdę tam są rzetelne informacje i że sprawa polska jest tam z taką wielką troską przedstawiona. Już pierwsze zdanie mówi, że Polska jest chyba najbardziej takim zdradzonym, źle wykorzystanym narodem w tej społeczności państw Zachodu. I tytuł odwołujący się właśnie do naszej petycji powoduje, że konserwatywni Amerykanie, że widać, że konserwatywni Amerykanie, nasi przyjaciele, naprawdę głęboko pochylają się nad losem Polski i z głębi serca piszą te słowa o Polakach, ale jeszcze też dodam podziękowanie do Boga, bo Kornelia tu razem ze mną przygotowała taką książkę nie tak dawno, Wielka przygoda z Biblią, taki 101-dniowy eksperyment, że całą Biblię można, jej główną narrację poznać w tak krótkim czasie i każdego dnia jest takie miejsce na taką konkretną modlitwę do Boga. To jest ważne, że nie tak, no Boże, żeby nam tam się szczęściło, czy żeby w świecie dobrze było i pokój panował, bo to papież Franciszek może takie modlitwy wam produkować, zawsze się tam spełnił albo nie spełnił, on za to nie odpowiada. Kornelia dzisiaj prosiła Boga konkretnie: Panie Jezu, proszę Cię dziś, daj rozgłos sprawę tej petycji. I dziś o 13:00 mówiliśmy o Onecie, a o 18:00 mówimy o mediach amerykańskich. Chwała Bogu. Praise the Lord. Mówią nasi amerykańscy przyjaciele.
Że jeśli chcecie sobie zamówić taki eksperyment w naszym sklepiku...
I przede wszystkim go zrobić. Sprawdzić Boga żywego, jak działa. Kornelia sprawdza, to dobre dziecko.
Good evening, everybody. In Make Poland Great Again. This is a Polish voice of biblical Christians for the world. And today we will talk about our petition to President Donald Trump regarding an international investigation into the April 10th, 2010 plane crash in Smolensk. We have in our studio in Lublin, Poland, Mr. Olgierd Kaltenberg. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to have you here because Mr. Olgierd is a Polish-American citizen who live in Texas, USA, and he is a very patriotic and biblical Christian. It's great that you are here and we have opportunity to talk with you. And we have, of course, our editor-in-chief, Pastor Paweł Chojecki.
Hello.
Hello. And the vice president of the November 11 movement, a political party we established, and Mr. Ivan Belostenko, our Jewish friend who lives in Poland and is our correspondent and our journalist.
Hello.
Hello. And you can find our petition to President Donald Trump at White House website. And the first question to you is, what is the meaning of the plane crash in Smolensk for today, Poland? Why we, the Poles, are interested in this plane crash still?
It's a difficult question, a very broad one. For Polish people, it is obviously connected with the Katyn crime made by Soviet Russians during the World War II, and Russians murdered by shot into the head 20,000, more than 20,000 of Polish officers taken in prison. So it was a war crime, and it's a symbol for Polish people about cruelty of Russia and Bolsheviks against Poland and Polish citizens. And President Lech Kaczyński and others of our elite were going to give honor to these officers killed by Russians, and they gave their lives in the next very big tragedy of our nation.
Mr. Olgierd, members of your family were murdered by Russians in Katyn.
That's right.
And how do you see these two cruel murders, Katyn and Smolensk, and why the truth about this cruel murder is so important to Poland?
It is very important because many people like myself have relatives who were murdered by Soviets during World War II. Of course, the tragedy that happened now in Smolensk has the connection with the Katyn crime, because President Lech Kaczyński and other important members of the Polish government and leadership of the military, Polish military, were going there to to commemorate that horrible crime. I have my personal interest in that because in this Katyn crime was killed my father, who was a major of Polish army, and my uncle, who was also a lieutenant in the Polish army, and my another uncle, older brother of my father were killed by Soviets in the same crime. All of these people were shot in the back of the head in Kharkov, and they are buried in just in the ground. There is no way that you can individually commemorate them in a separate grave, so to speak. Anyways, that's details. The fact is that they were murdered, and many of Polish people like myself have relatives connected to those crimes. This is very important, of course, extremely important. The murder itself is a horrible crime, and it was actually denied by Soviets for many, many years, or about 50 years, until they finally acknowledged that they did it. So that's my little comment about this at this point.
Yes, so it's this pretty the same situation that Russians neglect their crime then, and now they also say that they have nothing to do with Smolensk catastrophe. And I will ask you, Ivan, what is for you the meaning of the plane crash? It was 8 years ago, and why Poles still think about this and still want the truth about the Smolensk catastrophe?
Well, I think most important thing is that the Poles never ever heard the actual final story, the official version that was given to a thinking person. Makes absolutely no sense. You don't really need to go into much details and research too far to understand that it's completely illogical, the official version. Poles were promised to know the truth. Now it was supposed to be on this 8th year commemoration. We have been told, I think it was in late somewhere around winter, I think December time, if I'm not mistaken, that in April there's going to be a final report from Macharevich's commission, investigation about all this, and then instead of the actual, conclusive announcement of what have happened, and at least have the show the traitors on the Polish side who collaborated, what the Polish people got was just a monument, which is itself supposed to be temporary and is going to be demolished again, so they can put the next monument. So instead of basically sentences and trials and judgments, the Poles got a monument.
Yes, you mentioned Minister Antoni Macierewicz. He was, in a meanwhile, throughout from the government. He was a Ministry of Defense, and now he's not, and he doesn't have much power to reveal the whole truth and to sentence or judge the people responsible for the Smolensk. So the second question is that why we didn't have a trial and see any sentences given to people who are responsible for Smolensk. There is no punished persons.
I think that the free nation cannot imagine how strange is the situation in Poland now and after the Smolensk crash. please try to imagine such situation that American #1 plane Air Force One plane with President of United States,
First Lady.
Yes, and 100 of your allies.
NATO generals.
Yes, has a crash in different state.
In Russia.
For example, yeah, different country, and after it, the chief of the secret service, which was responsible for the safeness of our president, has a promotion to a new degree in rank of military, to be a general, from colonel to general. It happened in Poland after Smolensk crash.
Yeah, and
it's something stupidity. It is. It's not.
It's not
it betrayal of our former government, which took power after the crash of this presidential plane.
I think the people in US would probably be thinking now, if that would have happened in US, we would be all up in arms. So the question probably on their mind is, how come Poles are not up in arms? Part of the reason is because they don't have arms. But
there is. It's a very good question. I was in this crowd, very big crowd. It's maybe a few 100,000, maybe a million, or maybe 1.5 million people were in Warsaw after the Smolensk crash, and there were praying. They were crying on the main street of Poland, about near the presidential palace, and
saying that Russia killed our president.
It was obvious for all of us in the very first minutes of this very difficult day for us, but the media of which has a Soviet origin start to make a propaganda that it is a time to unite these Russian agents, Russian collaborators during our Soviet times, and the free Polish people. That it was in all programs, in television, radio, and so on. And another factor is the Catholic Church, the Bishop of Catholic Church in Poland. They start to do the same. Only to jak jest żałoba, mourn. Only to mourn, to cry, not to do anything. It was time for finishing the communist rule in Poland. But media and the Catholic bishop make nothing from this grave and
outcry
of Polish people.
And I will ask you, Olgierd, why do you think that after 8 years we have different governments in Poland, different people in our elite, and we don't have any trial, nobody was punished for the Smolensk crash, and why Polish people do such things? For Americans it's impossible.
It's impossible, of course. This is, I don't know what is the reason, but it sounds very suspicious, at least, that there was nobody was punished. There was no real good investigation. to find the truth. Actually, now there is still a commission which is headed by Minister Macierewicz, but somehow their possibility to finish a very long time investigation, it is stalled by unknown to me reason. And of course Minister Macierewicz lost his post as
Ministry of Defense.
As a minister in the this government of Prawo and Sprawiedliwość, law and justice, and he has no power now, practically political power, that he could finish that very important job, just to pinpoint who is responsible for all these things, because they have to be punished. Not to punish those perpetrators, those murderers, it's something that is incomprehensible.
And why do you think that Russia is responsible for crime in Smolensk, for killing our elite in Smolensk? Because you, as a party, as the November 11th movement, you wrote in the petition that that Russia is responsible for the Smolensk, and how can you explain this?
There are many factors which direct our thinking to this point. We can show a few of them. We can go back to the 2008 year, and there is invasion of Russian army to Georgia, and President Lech Kaczyński, which was killed in Smolensk 2 years later, was the main person which make a few countries leaders movement, and they come together to the capital of Georgia during the Russian, excuse me, army for Poles. It's
was
the same.
Not a mistake. Yeah.
Russian army invaded in this time Georgia, and Mr. Kaczyński, Lech Kaczyński, our president, said these words: "We are here today because we cannot allow any restoration and prevalence of imperialism in Europe. For today it is Georgia that is at stake. Tomorrow it can be Ukraine. The day after, the Baltic states, and then maybe my own country, Poland." Now it stands as a prophecy, almost a prophecy. Yeah. Right. All these things happened after this time. There is a film, Five Days War, I think, which the last scenes are connected with this activity of our President Lech Kaczyński. 2 years after it, when he was a main person which stopped Russian invasion, in Georgia, our president was killed. So it's obvious that there is an interest in Russia, and there is some words by Russian politics which indirectly connected with this crime. For example, Mr. Karaganov, it's a main ideologist and strategist of President Putin, which has a plan to build Euro-Asia, a monster connected, combined Asia, China, Russia, and Europe, and European Union in one big horrible state. There is Russia dream, and Poland is between Russia and Germany, and they always would like to crush Poland, to smash our nation and country from the map, from the globe, to unite with Germans and build this Euro-Asia. And Mr. Karaganov, a few months after the crash of Polish plane in Smolensk, said in an article which was published in Poland too, that now there is a free field to make this Euro-Asia plan, because the person like Yushchenko, former president of Ukraine, and our president are not in power and nie przeszkadzają. Don't disturb these plans. So there is an interest, and there is there are words which are very happy from the death of our president.
We can mention some other things, that the investigation was held by Russians. So do you imagine that, for example, Air Force One crashed in Russia, and American-led Russians and Vladimir Putin to lead...
And the Democrats.
led the investigation into the killing of their own president.
Yeah.
And Poles led Putin.
Not Poles, maybe our
Prime Minister Donald Tusk
yes,
let Putin do this. Ivan, what are the most suspicious parts of the Smolensk story and the Smolensk crash as you observe during your stay in Poland and before?
Well, I think there are a couple of things, right? And if you want to see a comprehensive analysis of some of those things, there are documentaries. For example, I think it's called Anatomy of the Fall, is one of them, where they go through all these facts. I think there's even two pieces when the second one came in later on, when there were more facts known. But let's just mention briefly some of those things. So the official version still, to this day, says that the airplane wing, one of the wings of the airplane, hit the what they call a tree, but the actual term is
iron tree.
It's
you can see it in the photo here, pancerna brzoza, which is I don't remember how you can say it. I think it's like armor.
It will be iron, bird.
Yeah. So anyway, so this tree that you see there broken is the actual one that the official explanation claims that the airplane's wing hit that tree, the wing got sawed off or broken off, and then the airplane following that made a sort of upside down turn and crashed. And now, I mean, how tall do birch trees grow to? I mean, you can check it. Like the average tree is, I think it's like 30, like the tallest, or even less. I think it's like 15 or something like that. Even, let's say, even if it's like reaches the 30s, I mean, the top of the tree is going to be, you know, it's really thin. It doesn't grow thicker at the top, it grows thinner at the top. So if you have a wing that hits the thin part of the tree, and even if it breaks it, like it broke here, there's no way that the top of that tree would break a wing, like a steel part of the plane. So that's kind of goes against all logic. The other thing is, we know that the parts of the airplane were scattered way before the alleged impact with the ground or with the trees, because they were seen from the satellites. So what caused those bits of the plane to come off? I mean, what was it, like panels weren't tightened up? I mean, that makes no sense. And it was spread across, I think it's like 1 kilometer or something before it hit that tree. Other things, we have also the fact that we mentioned that the investigation was done by MAC, by a Russian commission, joined by a so-called Polish commission. So if Russia had nothing to hide, they would have just, you know, invite foreign investigators into their country, international committees such as the one that we are appealing for. If they had nothing to hide, there's no problem. Russia's explanation is that they're trying to be framed by capitalist agents, and this is the reason why they have to do it themselves, because they want to make sure that it's done properly. So the other thing is, this is like smaller things that sort of add up to the inconsistencies and the nonsense.
We have Anodina, the chief of the MAC, the International Commission, but it was a Russian commission, who said that our Polish pilots were responsible for the plane crash, and that's the official Russian version of who is blamed for.
Yeah, just one more thing I'll mention as well. Actually, just briefly, some of the things we know that we saw from the video that the fireman was breaking the windows in the parts of the airplane that they were on the ground. So what was the reason for them to break the windows of the airplane? I mean, that makes no sense. They allegedly said that they want to get the chains through to lift it, but eventually lifted up with, you know, with other means. So one of the reasons that were mentioned in the media, the reason for breaking those windows is when you have an explosion inside a closed room, which is like the airplane space. The explosion might not break the windows, it might not even leave visible signs on them, but the explosion causes micro fractures in the window, which are possible to be seen by microscope. So, I mean, obviously the fire person just was carrying out an order that was given to him to smash all the windows, but that's like one of the things that is suspicious. Another thing is that the area where the crash occurred eventually got covered by a concrete spill, and now they built on top of that place, was it like a shopping center or something?
And we still don't have our plane, because the plane which crashed in Smolensk is still in Russian hands, and they don't want to give it back. And
there is another factor, that it was a trap. It's not only something which was happened, but it was a trap. And there is many factors. For example, there was none of Russian pilots helpers of Polish pilots. It's a normal way of making it, that there is a navigator from the airport, which is the destination of the plane, and there was none. Pilots didn't obtain a map with meteorology maps, and the main factor, there was no Polish guard on the landing place. There was none of Polish guard. Our president will come to the different country, and there is
not much friendly.
Yes, not much friendly in our history, and there is even one Polish soldier or Secret Service officer to take caution about security of our delegation, but there were some Russian agents in Polish diplomacy during the time of this crash. It's something
and still are to
so suspicious that it is it's not a mistake, and it is not a coincidence.
Well,
it's a crime.
There was also a lot of parts of this plane scattered before the site of the crash. There is an evidence now that there were explosions in the air. One of those crucial evidence is the door, which was after explosion got so much energy that was deep in the ground. It was impossible that from normal crash this kind of event could happen. This door was definitely with great force pushed from inside of the plane and then hit the ground with tremendous force. So there was at least 2 explosions in the air, which is now known through the analysis of data by the American Institute. I don't remember now the full name of that institute, which is in Wichita.
Yeah, National Institute.
Right. So this was now thoroughly analyzed, and we know that there were explosions. So there was no just crash, as they say, of the plane, which was allegedly caused by the poor skills of the pilots, which is totally absurd. It's not the truth. Everything also we know is that the tower was giving the false information to the pilots
about the distance,
and they were directing them to go and land a long time before the start of the landing, real landing place should be. So there was and they were receiving the instructions to mislead those pilots from Moscow.
Yeah.
Just on that, that they were steering them closer to the ground, those were giving them wrong figures. The repeated autopsies that we done after the burial, we had to get the bodies out of the graves again and do testing on them. First of all, they were found parts of explosives in those remains. And the other thing that Olgierd mentioned about the fact that they were steering them too close to the ground, one of the pilots had his, imagine that folks, one of the pilots had the fingers in his hands broken because he was pouring the steering in such a force. So obviously he was surprised that they were so close, that he was just doing everything he could. Imagine when I first heard it, it was shocked, like how strong you have to pull to break your own fingers.
Yeah.
I mean, you would give up to the pain before you could pull enough, you know.
Our pilots, when saw that it is something not in order on this airport, start to pull up the plane. But in this time, in this moment, there was an explosion and stopped the possibility to run the plane. So it is the evidence of they are trying, but impossibility of making it.
Yes,
well,
I didn't.
There is some motivation that we can really logically expect was the reason why it was so false way of presenting all of that and denying that it was not the explosions, but just something else. In this case, the pilots allegedly were not properly using their skills. But this is very similar in this a way that, like with Katyn, this is the similarity. For many years, Soviets and then Russians even denied that they were responsible for Katyn forced murder. Well, actually, there was few places that those officers were killed. So there is no really a surprise that they are again denying something, as long as it is possible. That's why it's impossible. I mean, that's so important that there will be really international, true investigation of this whole thing, and finally the truth will be shown to the world, and then it has to be acknowledged by those responsible that this indeed was not the crash caused by the pilots, by the explosions, by something that was that those explosions were planted somewhere. And we know that this plane was serviced in before this trip. It was serviced in Samara in Russia. To place them inside of the wings, those explosives, was impossible to do it anywhere else. There has to be a possibility for a long-term access and getting to those places that those explosions could damage the wing especially, and other places too.
I didn't mention that Olgierd is a doctor, and he worked in Polish Scientific Academy.
And a person which was responsible for this service in Russia was, we think, killed, because it was very strange suicide a few days before Christmas, when he make some shopping for his children and wife, and planning trip to the Christian this holidays, and after receiving some information from Russia, he was very upset and make some calls, and few hours later he was found dead in his office.
Well, there's also interesting thing that I see it, that those officers, there's 20,000 that they put their hands on, because those officers of the Polish army who were in German hands, most of them survived in those camps. Nobody killed them like the Katyn forest murder was. And it was a vengeance on part of Soviets, because they lost the war, extremely important war. They wanted just overwhelm all Europe in 1920. 21 was probably the date of the signing the peace, and they lost this war. And these are the officers who defeated them.
Yeah.
They cannot stand that. If they put their hands on, they killed them mercilessly.
Yeah.
I will not allow anybody to tell that they were just, as Stalin said, that those officers were allegedly went through Manchuria somewhere. No, they were killed, the way as it is shown here, on the back of the head. Prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Just as, so same thing is now similar with Smolensk, those that visit in Georgia of President Kaczynski, Lech Kaczynski, and the other presidents just weren't. This was for Soviet Russia at this time unacceptable. Somebody opposed them and crossed their plans. So they have to be punished. That's I see it, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they punished him, and they punished our Polish pilots because they were heroes, as you said. They tried to rescue our elite, but Russians called them responsible for the assassination, for the crime they commit. Okay, so I think we are going to the end, but before the end, the last question: why we, the Polish people, appeal to Donald Trump, President of the free world, to create an international commission to investigate the Smolensk crash once more? We have Russian commission, we have Polish commission who did the fraud and the false evidence and so on and so on. But why now the petition to President Donald Trump?
It is obvious for us that Polish nation and Polish state now is too weak to conquer, to be in one-to-one conflict with great Russia. So we are waiting for 8 years for some truth about Smolensk tragedy. We waited for some sentences, some justice, but we have nothing but a little monument in Warsaw. It's too little for free Poles. And we believe Donald Trump now is a leader of the free world. A few months ago, last year, President of United States came to Poland and said that he and American nation would like to make an alliance between free hero Poles and the great American nation. And now we are waiting for to see that promise in practice, and we think that there is no other way to Polish nation to have freedom, not a half freedom as we has now, but full freedom. Freedom always is only full. There is there is no half freedom. So it's a Polish dream to have a free state. We have 100 years ago. There is a 100 period from this time. With help of American nation, with help of President Wilson, we thought and have our free state for 20 years, and we stop Bolshevik, as you mentioned, to conquer the whole Europe and maybe the whole world. In 20th last century, on the field before Warsaw, we conquer them. And now our dream is the same. We would like to have a free state, and United States and other democratic nations which won in the World War II, guarantee Poland independence and freedom. So we ask, do that help us now?
Yes, and we have almost 16,000 signatures under our petition to Donald Trump, but we need 100,000. 100,000, and the deadline is 13th of May, as I remember. So the clock is ticking, and I ask you for the last words about why do you think this petition is important now, and why do you think that it's possible to Poles ask President Donald Trump to do an international investigation in Smolensk plane crash?
I think what you mentioned a couple of days ago when we started the petition, that at the times of, I think it was Wilson, that those signatures were collected for as a thanks. During, maybe you want to tell us about that.
Please go on.
There was no internet during that time. I don't exactly remember the names and what was the reasons around those collections of those signatures.
150. rocznica odzyskania niepodległości przez Stany.
So it was like a thanks to US and the signatures that have been collected to commemorate the 150 independence of the US. The Poles managed to collect 5 million signatures. Yeah. That was without Facebook, it was a whole manual. So Poles managed to collect 5 million signatures back then. Now we're aiming at 100,000 signatures, and it's not even Poles. Obviously, this petition is free for everybody to sign. Yeah. So it's strange that we are struggling with such a small number, whereas before that we were capable of much more.
You need to remember that there, in between these two events, there was a German occupation for 5 years and 50 years of Russian occupation. Much of our patriots, much of our elite, much of our heroes were killed, and all Poles were threatened a lot. So the 100,000 today, it's a big number.
But nothing is impossible, because like Marek Kowalski is saying, that the Jewish nation also had their ups and downs, and in some places even much more severe than the Poles, and there's no reason, if Jewish nation was able to bounce back with the blessing of God, that the Poles cannot bounce back.
Yeah.
If it's according to His will,
we pray for that each day.
And Dr. Olgierd Kaltenberg, you live in United States under President Trump, and why do you think that Donald Trump is supposed to help us, to help Poland in this battle against Russia, and to help us start a new international investigation into Smolensk catastrophe?
I think and I know that Poland is important for President Donald Trump. And he also knows that Polish people like him very much, and what he does to America and to all the world, the free world. When President Trump visited Poland last year, he showed himself how Polish people love America and President Donald Trump.
Amen.
You was there.
I was personally there, so I can say this. I think that I'm sure. Ivan was also there. Yeah. Yes. So I'm sure that President Trump will certainly help Polish people in Poland. And it's very important that we get that 100,000 signatures, and I would encourage everybody who listens to us now and his and her friends just to sign on that petition.
Yeah.
That would be great.
If I can also add to that, many people were claiming that the timing is wrong, that Donald Trump and the US have no time now because they have everything from North Korea to the conflict with China on the the economical front, and now with Russia. So there's all these fronts, and people are saying that the timing is wrong, it doesn't have time for this petition. But I mean, it's absurd, because this is the war. There's one war. There's many fronts, yes, but the war is the same. It's the free world against the unfree, against the empire of evil. So I mean, Marian Kowalski was saying that the Smolensk sprawa, the Smolensk case, and the whole thing around Smolensk is never going to be fully revealed. It's never going to go out into public, the real reasons behind it and the people who were responsible, until one of the atomic empires in the world would have somehow to benefit from it, will have a way to benefit from it. I mean, it's cruel and it's cold, but I mean, that's politics. And we have now a really, I mean, the conflict is as explosive as ever been, I think, since the World War II. We are on the verge of World War III. We know that there isn't going to be World War III, so we're not worried, because we study the Bible, and we believe that the prophecy that is given in the Bible has been proven true until now. So it's going to be the same, but this is the same front, isn't it? I mean, the Russian and the empire of evil. So I mean, it's the perfect timing to start this petition.
And I need to ask you, because it was you who invented this petition. It was your idea to start it. And who do you think you are? That you, as a Pole, you want to Donald Trump, interested in our Polish case? Why did you do this?
I know from the Bible, of course, and I was taught it during my trip to America, United States, that the one man can change the current of history. So it is not true that there need to be millions of people and majority, and in this time you make a difference. You can make a difference. No, with God helps, one man can make a difference. So I'm not alone. We're a bunch of patriots. So I'm sure that it will success, and God will bless our efforts. So it's something obvious to me that it should be done in this moment. So I do that. I have done so. And connecting to the last Ivan sentence, I think it is important not only to Poles to know the truth about this crime, but it is important to you. It's important to the whole free world to know the true face of Russia. It's not a fine democratic face. It's a face of murderer. It's a face of deceiver. It's a face of liar. And all free world need to know that. And I think the Smolensk case is a very good example to show that.
That's why we ask you for signing our petition to Donald Trump for international investigation in Smolensk crash. You can do this at the website of White House, and you have this link in our description under the program, and you have it on our Facebook pages. You will find the Facebook event of our Make Poland Great Again TV, and you can join and you can pass it to your friends. And please remember, after signing, you need to confirm your signature at your mailbox, and this is very important because without it, your signature won't be right. So thank you so much for this discussion. We have Dr. Olgierd Kaltenberg, the Polish citizen, an American citizen who live in Texas, USA. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, ma'am. My pleasure.
Our pleasure. And we have, of course, our editor-in-chief, Pastor Paweł Chojecki, the vice president of the November 11 movement. Thank you so much.
Very much.
And Mr. Ivan Belostenko, our Jewish friend, who is our journalist, and now you live in Poland and you love Poland also.
Yeah. And just remind the viewers that today is 17th anniversary of the Israeli state, and we would like to, I think, on behalf of all of our editorial team, to congratulate the state. Yeah. And most important, to remember the roots, where they come from, where they survived for many years, and who they own, you know, due respect for, you know, for the things that...
And we have a very straight connection with your fights for freedom, for your nation fight for freedom, because your officers, your soldiers, Jewish soldiers, were trained by Polish army, by Free Poland during this 20 years of freedom which God gave us before the World War II.
Yes, and we were talking about our Polish-Jewish common history in previous program. You can find it on our Make Poland Great Again at YouTube. Thank you so much for the discussion, and we will come back soon to you. Thank you for your signature under our petition. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.